CM 365, all about Carnatic music. The composition of Carnatic music is indeed very, very unique in the sense that on one end it's complete in itself, and on the other end we see that it also lends itself to a lot of creativity. Why am I saying this is because of the fact that in some systems of music we see that the composition is just adequately complete in itself. Sometimes we see that it is a tool to showcase the melodic aspect. Sometimes the rhythmic aspect may come out well through the composition. Or sometimes we see that the compositions become a mere tool for the elaboration of the creative elements. But the Carnatic composition as such, is manifold or multifold in the sense that it can serve various purposes according to the context itself. The first thing is that the Carnatic music compositions are a beautiful manifestation of the bhakti element. That is, most of the compositions in Carnatic music are based on a particular deity. It may be Lord Ganesha, Rama, Krishna, Devi or whatever. But the point is that the composer actually tries to bring out the bhakti bhava through the composition. Of course, the different kinds of emotions are there in this. The bhakti bhava may be one of complete surrender or one of pleading or just about generally addressing the God. But nevertheless, we see that devotion becomes an important element. And we also see that because of this fact that it is based on various gods and goddesses, very appropriately it can also be sung on different occasions. So thus we see that certain kritis based on a particular god is very apt to be sung on that particular occasion. The next point is that the composition is a reflection of the thought process of the composer himself, in the sense that from the whole corpus of compositions created by a composer, we can understand the entire musical thought process of the composer. In the sense that, for example, if you take the compositions of Tyagaraja and see, you can understand that he has been a great traditionalist in terms of following the basic lakshanas of our music, but at the same time he has tried to be very innovative in trying to traverse new domains, I would say, and try to create a new path for himself. This we could also say of Dikshidhar, where he has also chosen his own path for creativity in the realm of music. Like this, we can see and analyze every composer for that matter to see what his musical thought process is, and the composition becomes the best tool for that. In the similar way, we also see that the composition becomes a beautiful medium, I would say, to reflect the emotions of the performer also. In the sense that in the composition, the performer actually tries to put his heart and soul into it. He tries to understand the whole melodic aspect, rhythmic aspect, and so many things of the composition. And then he tries to present it in his own inimitable way. And that is why I always say that though a particular composition we may have heard about 100 times, each time it sounds very fresh to us. Each time it seems very unique because of the fact that the performer also, actually the inputs of the performer also matter a lot in terms of the output of the composition. Then we see that the composition, one of the most valuable contribution is, of course, of the composition is towards the raga, the conceptualization of the raga. For instance, if you take the age-old ragams like Kalyani, Todi, Bhairavi, Kambudi, we do have so many compositions in them. So now if you look at all these compositions and try to analyze them, you also understand the different facets in which the ragam can be approached. On the other end, we also have had composers creating new ragas like Suddha Simantini, Chandra Jyoti, Sumane Saranjani, and so many other ragas. So where you see that the composer gives us a clue about how to go about the ragam, what the lakshanam of the ragam is, and how the ragam should be conceived in terms of presentation. For this, in terms of the giving us the idea of the ragam, idea of new ragas, the composition plays a very important role. Then we also come to the fact that A very interesting aspect about the composition as such is that because of the fact that the Sahitya element is very, very important in Carnatic music. In fact, as much as the melody and the rhythm, we see that the Sahitya contains very lofty ideals, it contains such a rich store of information it is. And also from the other kind of beauties that are embedded in the Sahitya, we see that aspects like Prasa, Yati, Yamakam, Swarakshara, the Madhyama Kala Sahitya, all this actually add a special beauty to the composition itself. Apart from the melody and the rhythm, the Sahitya element or the words add these kinds of embellishment to the composition. And we also see that the compositions serve multi-purpose ways, in the sense that some particular compositions can be rendered very aptly in temples, some are ideal for rendering in marriages, some for concerts. Sometimes we also see that certain compositions are very aptly used as part of dance recitals, some for some kind of dance dramas. So the composition itself, according to the context, you can choose the composition. Then the composition, another important aspect of our Carnatic composition is that though there is a basic structure involved in terms of what the composer has intended, we see that after that a lot of Sangatis have been added by others. Now the Sangati has been, it's possible to add it because of the way the composition is structured. That is what, especially in the Kritis, we see that Sangatis can be added very conveniently and very aesthetically also, and many performers and other musicians have also tried their hand at it. So that way we see that the composition gives enough room and space for this kind of Sangati development. Last but not the least, the most important thing is that the composition becomes an ideal medium for the extension of one's manodharma. So whether we are singing Raga Alapana, when we are singing Raga Alapana, obviously we sing the Raga in the chosen composition. Suppose I am taking Ka Vava and Varali, then obviously I will be singing prelude for that in the Raga Alapana, it will be in the Varali Ragam. Suppose I take another composition, for example, if I take O Rangashayi in Kambodi, then obviously the Raga Alapana will be in the Kambodi Ragam, and the composition also ideally provides a suitable place, I would say, for doing Neraval, Swaram, etc. So here Bhuloka Vaikuntam is a very, very beautiful place in Orangasai for doing Neraval, and then of course apt Swarams, and then you have Tanya Vartanam and other things. So that way we see that the composition here is such that it serves multi-purposes, in the sense that though we have a composition of a Pallavi Anupallavi Charanam or Pallavi Samashti Charanam, we see that the composition can mean many things to many of us based on the context, based on what is the purpose for which it is being used.
CM 365, all about Carnatic music.